By Ciaran Browne, Assistant Professor in Conflict Resolution and Reconciliation at Trinity College, Dublin, and a Fellow at Trinity Centre for Resistance Studies. He's speaking to us from Belfast. Thanks for joining us on this news hour. Why are we seeing this uptick in violence between Palestine, or rather Palestinians, and Israel, especially over the last few days?
Well, thanks as always for having me on to discuss this. The first thing I would say is violence is omnipresent in this space. Palestinians have always resisted Zionist occupation and colonization of their land. So it may appear that there have been more higher levels of engagement or interaction, but this type of violence happens all the time against Palestinians. The areas of Jenin and Nablus in particular have been very live and very active at the moment when it comes to resistance against the Israeli occupation. And on top of this level of violence, we have everyday structural violence that is taking place against the Palestinian population. And let's not forget that that impacts absolutely everything when it comes to freedom of movement, when it comes to accessing resources, when it comes to an ongoing siege against the Palestinian population in the Gaza Strip. So it may appear that there's an uptick in violence, but I would say this violence is always there against the Palestinian population.
And Brendan, it does seem ironic that we've had so many deaths in the same week that the world marked Palestinian Solidarity Day, and we see so much support at the World Cup for Palestinians and their cause. It's all rather ironic, isn't it, considering that that support doesn't appear to be reflected in the real-life situation for Palestinians?
Well, yeah, I mean, there were 5 Palestinians murdered on the day of International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people, including 2 brothers. Just let that sink in. 2 brothers from the same family who were murdered on the same day. I actually don't think it is ironic at all. I mean, the people do not represent their governments. The Arab world has had a long affiliation and affinity with the Palestinian people in their pursuit of anti-colonial struggle. The people are different from the governments. The governments may try and normalize relationships with Israel, but the people will not always accept that. And so the level of solidarity has always existed there. So I don't find it ironic at all to see Palestinian flags flying in Qatar. The Tunisian team has, long supported Palestine. So the people are different from the government, and we should never forget that.
And at the same time, while this fight for Palestinians continues, the Israeli government itself so fractured. Benjamin Netanyahu trying to form a new government now. That government seems like it's going to be more right-wing than ever. Will having someone like Itamar Ben-Gvir as a security minister, who is a convicted racist, simply worsen the Palestinian situation? But also, it's a very poor reflection internationally for Israel and for those countries who have normalized relations with Israel.
Well, I think there's a couple of ways to interpret that as well. I mean, speaking to my Palestinian friends and comrades, I mean, many times nothing changes. It doesn't matter who holds seats of power within the Israeli government or within in the upper echelons of Israeli political life. They follow the same settler colonial logic, which is trying to erase a Palestinian presence on the land. So it doesn't matter if this guy represents the far right or whatever, they all follow the same colonial logic. And when you talk about international isolation, I mean, at the end of the day, the Israeli government, the Israeli army has been allowed to engage in this practice of attempted ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people without being held accountable by the international community up until this point. Will something like this really change anything? I'm not so sure.
Ciaran Browne, appreciate your analysis as always, speaking to us there from Belfast.
Thank you.